This will identify a workforce that is untapped. So an individual to be homeless or to be reentry coming out of prison or what have you, they have worked hard to survive. So we've used that as a strength. If we can refocus their mind and use the same skill set, but change their focus, then you have an amazing employee.
Welcome to the Covation Center and the From Bars to Business series. This series focuses on the challenges of reentry for the justice involved and how businesses can benefit from hiring them and make a positive difference in their lives. This podcast is funded through a grant from the First Community Foundation Partnership of Pennsylvania. Cleveland Way from the American Rescue Workers joins us for this episode, A Fresh Start. Let's get talking. Hey, welcome back to the Covation Center's podcast, From Bars to Business. I'm Steve Brady, the Executive Director, and as always, excited to have someone else to talk to. In this case, I get to talk to Cleveland Way from American Rescue Workers here in Williamsport, and they have some amazing missions that they do at the Rescue Workers. Cleveland, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here today.
We're just really appreciative of not only you being here, but of all the things you guys are doing at Rescue Workers. Could you just briefly talk about the mission you have there and then the program that you have?
Sure. Our mission is very simple. It is repurposing clothing, furniture, and lives. The goal is to meet the community where they are and to help them in those areas to get over the hump, whether that's food or repurposing their items and reselling them for the purpose of shelter and getting individuals on their feet. We'll also do some community outreach in regards to helping individuals with rental assistance and utility assistance if needed. Recently, we have created a program called Fresh Start that is designed for our long-term men's shelter program that is to help an individual come in with nothing and get them to become self-sufficient. And there's many steps in that manner, which I would like to talk about today.
So I like the way you highlighted that you're repurposing furniture, clothing, and lives. I really like that way of looking at it because for many of us, all we see is the thrift store. All we see is that somebody's donated furniture or clothing. Now, the furniture and clothing business that you have, is that really intended to allow you to repurpose lives, if you will?
That is correct. So 82% of the funding we have for the program that we're providing the community comes through our resale in many different areas, whether that's the thrift store or doing bulk sales for overseas use and so on, third world country use. But the finances that come in, we're looking at about 82% is supported through that venue.
Well, that's awesome. And so those of us that are either donating furniture or clothing or purchasing it, we can feel comfortable that what we're doing is really being helpful more than just that furniture or clothing.
That is correct. So 100% totally is going to the overhead as well as helping the community. And you can actually see it happening and going out the door.
That's really awesome. And so then part of that, you mentioned the homeless men's program and so forth, and you've got this Fresh Start program. Is that the name of it?
Yes, that is called Fresh Start.
So talk to me just a little bit about what that program is, what it entails, and what your goals or your outcomes are for a program like that.
Absolutely. So I'd like to begin in the beginning. When I took over as a shelter director, what I was seeing is that we had a few people here that had about 3 years, and there was one individual who was a veteran who was here 5 years in the shelter. I struggled with that because I could not see how a shelter became a permanent house or permanent housing solution for an individual. A shelter is supposed to be a short-term placement to get individuals on their feet. So one of the things that I did was started to research within the country as to what others were doing to help individuals, as opposed to just giving them shelter and then giving them a rest so that they go back out and do things. So, and then after getting that information, I incorporated it into the mission, as well as what we are capable of doing as an agency. And Fresh Start was born. So we now have a 9-month program that is divided into 3 separate sections. The first section is 90 days, and you come in the door, there's a blackout period, the 30-day blackout period. That is to help me to identify and continue to help discover those individuals who have the mindset and heart to change. So if you could do this for 30 days, stay within the 1-block radius, and adhere to our appointment schedule, then you're well on your way. Also, within those 90 days, you'll be working with us in our warehouse while myself and my case manager is finding out what is going on with you, what caused you to be homeless, what's your skill set, what was your life like prior to homelessness, and so on. And if there's any services that you will need to maintain yourself. We will surround them with those services, whether that's drug and alcohol treatment. Even if there's inpatient, we'll hold the bed for them when they come back. Mental health, case management, psychiatric and med management, and getting them a physical and getting them a dental appointment and all those other things we will identify with. They have child support. We will work with domestics to postpone their payments until they reach the goal of being able to work outside of here.
So you really aggressively are working just to build the basics of getting life back together, just those most basic of necessities.
Absolutely. So that is happening once they walk in the door. So we will get them surrounded. Now, I personally have the ability to do the case management and counseling. However, what I want them to establish a relationship with somebody that is going to be long lasting. And I'm not planning on being in their life for long. I want them to move on to greener pastures after they leave here.
Awesome.
So once that stage takes place now, in that 90 days, they're working with us in our warehouse as a work rehabilitation program. So we are going to smooth out those rough edges of work ethic and employment so that they can learn how to respond to a supervisor, show up on time. That if you're scheduled for 8 o'clock and you show up at 8 o'clock, then you're not actually on time because you have to go to the bathroom and put your coat up and what have you. Working with coworkers and dealing with everyday work stressors. And once we can get those smoothed out, we're also becoming a reference for that individual. So when we are recommending them for a position, we have the ability to tell them how this individual is working because we work with them hand in hand every day.
You're getting them to the point where they understand that if you start work at 8 o'clock, you're ready to start work. You're not 8 o'clock's not just a show time, and that you're setting the expectation that's the expectation another employer is going to have for you. So that might actually put them a step ahead of almost anybody else that applies for a job.
That is absolutely correct. So the goal is while they're working with us, they are treating this as a job. So all of this stuff is voluntary, but this is a job for them, a job readiness program. So they're treating every aspect of that as a job, from the time they walk in the door to the time they leave. So even the supervisor, we are giving them assignments and projects and so on, just to help them to focus on organizing their day, so they're ready for the workforce.
To kind of dwell on negative type things, but you say you can act as a reference for them when they move on to get a job somewhere else. Just out of curiosity, have you ever had to say, no, we can't be your reference yet? You still need to work on some things?
Absolutely. So that is one of the things I work with my warehouse supervisor, and we discuss every case as their 90 days are coming to a close. And if they feel that this person isn't ready for the workforce, then we will extend that time a little bit longer, and we will sit down with them, kind of like an evaluation, sit down with them, give them those areas that need to be worked on a little bit more, and then we will concentrate on that area so that they can be ready.
Really good to know. So as an employer, when I get your recommendation, I know that it's not just a rubber stamp. It's not just they've done 90 days, but that you've put thought and work into this, and that your word, I'm not doubting your word. I'm just saying it's good to know that your word means something when you come to us, and that referral means something. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. That is correct. We're putting a lot of work into these individuals, and we just don't want them to come in and get out. That would take us back to prior to me becoming the director. So what we want to do is become agents of change. And however that happens. Now, mind you, we will have individuals here longer than the 9 months because they're just not quite ready yet. Some of them will identify that themselves. So it's not a cookie cutter program. We will gear the program around the individual and their needs. Now, we are pushing them and nudging them a little bit to get going so that they don't stay comfortable. But we want them to be comfortable in every stage that they're moving in within the program.
Okay, great.
So once we move from that stage, the beginning stage, we move into working outside of this building. So we have went to many different agencies and organizations and talked to them about this program and what it entails. This will identify a workforce that is untapped. So an individual to be homeless or to be reentry coming out of prison or what have you, they have worked hard to survive. So we've used that as a strength. If we can refocus their mind and use the same skill set, but change their focus, then you have an amazing employee. So that's kind of what we're working on. And then once we pitch this to these companies, I get what they are looking for, and we will incorporate that into the individuals that we have here. And so far, we have a 100% placement rate because we've been able to send individuals that they're specifically looking for, and they're ready to work.
Now, 100% placement rate is good. Now, do you have any statistics on how long those people stay in the jobs before they move on or before they move out or anything like that? So
this program has been up and running for 2 years. So we don't have a whole lot of data to go
understand.
However, what I can tell you is those individuals who have gone through the program successfully, they are still maintaining a job. Some of them have started through temp agencies and now they've been hired on, and we have quite a few that have moved to supervisory positions.
That's awesome. Now, one of the emphases we have, this initial, so the initiative behind this podcast series is to be talking about from bars to business, the idea of transitioning those who happen to be justice involved. Now, to be fair, not everyone who's homeless, not every man who's homeless was justice involved. Luck did not shine on him or what have you. A veteran just hit a rough patch and didn't necessarily go to jail or have an involvement with the justice system. But what sort of process do you have for those that are justice involved, and what percentage would you say come through your program that have an involvement with the justice system?
Okay. So we're looking at about a third of the individuals that is in our program has been involved with the system. They're either coming out of the system directly into our program, or they have been out for a while and their home plan have fallen through, or they haven't been progressing like their probation officer or parole officer would like them to. So they would be vetted first. The goal would be to identify the readiness for change. And that's going to be different for everybody. We have either a virtual or a phone conference with that individual. I will look at their background, what they've done in prison, how their counselor sees them, and so on. And we go from there. Now, there are 3 disqualifiers off the bat. One is arson, sex offense, and aggravated assault. Now, with aggravated assault, if you've been in the justice field for a minute, you would understand that aggravated assault can be a wide range of anything from a struggle through the arrest process to actually hurting someone. So we look at the whole aspect of that. So there is a gray area in the aggravated assault charge, but the goal is to find change, and we will not accept anybody that has been extremely violent unless it's been a long period of time that has passed.
So the potential difference there might be I'm being restrained because I happen to be, I'm going to use my 1970s language, I'm tripping on something, right? Angel dust or whatever. I might be more violent because of my drug induced state. That's viewed differently as an aggravated assault from they walked up to me and I just wasn't in the mood to deal with them and I just started fighting.
That's correct. Or there was a bar fight, or something happened on the street and then you ended up a physical altercation and they tagged you with an aggravated assault. Gotcha. So you may not have a violent history, but you have an aggravated assault on your record now. So that's what we take into account, and that's why we have the interview and we look at the full record. And if we need to, we will look at the whole court proceeding as to how things unfolded.
Well, that's good to know that you actually have a process, and that even when we're working through these things, we do 2 things. We evaluate what the actual criminal involvement might have been, and we don't just arbitrarily say 5 letters make all the difference in the world. We need to hear the story. We want to understand the whole person, in this case, the whole man behind that. Now, as they go through your program, they're going through the same program you talked about earlier, right? The same 90 days and the same process?
Yeah. So it's the exact same program. They'll do the first 90 days and then they will start working. Once they start working, in the beginning, the first 90 days, because we're asking them not to work, we will give them an allowance. The first week they will get $5, and then each week it'll increase by $5 until they hit 20. Once they hit $20, if they volunteer an extra day outside of their 5-day work week, we will give them an extra $10. This is just money in their pocket for soda, cigarettes, whatever that they do. The idea is to create, again, a work ethic plus reward. So if they volunteer, then they get a small reward to do that. So now once they are working, the allowance will disappear. And then when on their first paycheck, we will evaluate their stuff, and then we will ask for 30% of that income at minimum. 15% stays with the program. The other 15% goes into a savings account with their name on it here at ARW. That costs 2 things. It helps us to identify, watch it grow, and we can monitor its growth. I have experience in individuals showing me a pay stub and showing me their bank account. And the moment they showed me their bank account, they emptied it. So we are now holding that here so we can see it grow and we know that it's here. The 50% that stays in the program is an attempt to pay it forward. So what they're doing for any individual that come in that we cannot do from the clothes or items that we're getting and donated, we are able to purchase them, helping them with prescriptions. If they have an abnormal size for shoes or clothes or whatever, we will purchase them with that funding. And if it's come time for them to work and they need special, like a tool kit, tool belt, steel toe shoes or what have you, we will equip them with those items through that fund. So the individuals that is going through that program, they're actually paying for and helping the individual that's coming in the door. So when they hit $1,500 in their savings account, then they move to the third phase, which is a housing solution. I belong to many different alliances and organizations and boards here in Lycoming County that have some housing programs available. Master leasing program, supportive housing program, all of them have been funded by the commissioner's office. Okay. So if we can get them into those programs, which they will help with case management, they will help continue rent for 6 to 12 months. I will also be doing case management with them for the next 12 months once they get their own place. If for some reason they do not qualify or the funding is out, then we will still pay first month rent and security, potentially even month number 2, to get them in the door, and we will furnish their apartment for them, and we will provide them a month's worth of food, and we will give them all the cleaning items they need for their home apartment. So basically,
is this after you've placed them in a job outside of ARW? You're still providing a nice support structure for them to ensure that they've got that launch pad that they need to move forward. Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that. This is you saying, okay, you're not done and you've got a job. You're on your own now. This is you going, you've got a job. We want to make sure you're successful. So we're coming alongside.
Correct. So we're going to help them budget. We're going to help them save. We're going to help them manage their funds as well as their, so if they're coming in with things that we postpone, like domestics and child support or fines, costs, now we will add that into their budget so that they can start getting paid now. If there's any back rent from place they were evicted from, we will pay that off. If they have an overdraft that will prevent them from having a bank account. I have 3 banks in the area that is going to come to them and help them take care of that and then teach them how to successfully own a bank account. So again, it's working together as a community.
I really like that. So as we look at this conversation in the podcast to talk to business owners, if I'm a business owner and I'm looking to come to you and I go, hey, Cleveland, I'm looking for some people to work here. Is this a risk? What risk am I taking? Part of what I'm hearing is a lot of the concerns I might have about hiring somebody is that they have all these other burdens that they're carrying. In the military, we would take care of a lot of those burdens off of our soldiers and airmen's backs by saying we have the medical facility on base, we have the commissary, we have the BX, we have base housing, all those things. So you don't have to worry about your family while you're out doing your mission. You're essentially providing that support structure. So as a business owner, I'm going to look and say, okay, I know that much of their outside of the walls of my business life is being supported and strengthened. So that should be an encouragement for me, right?
That is correct. So you know that their basic needs are being met here. So the only thing that they have to worry about is taking care of themselves and being able to build up their self-esteem and the pride of the work that they're doing. So because while they're working, they're still living here and we're providing all of their meals. We're just asking them to give 30% just so that they'll be ready for when they leave, basically. Right. So that is, we're just preparing for that. As you know, living paycheck to paycheck would also create another barrier within the stressful environment of an individual. So we take that away by not releasing them until they hit that $1,500 mark in their savings account. So now they have a sense of, they have a fallback plan just in case a feather drops on their life. They're not living paycheck to paycheck.
That's very similar to the Dave Ramsey model of $1,000 emergency fund. Yes, and so, before you go in your debt-free push to pay off all your debts, Dave Ramsey says you get that $1,000 emergency fund. So when stuff happens, when Murphy comes knocking on the door, you don't have to go into debt and you don't have to do whatever to pay off whatever that emergency was. I love that approach too. What are some of the challenges that businesses bring to you when they come to you and they say, well, we're considering it, but what are some of the things you're hearing from businesses and how do you talk through some of those with them?
Well, you're looking at an individual who has a history. So because they have a criminal history or they have an addictive past, the risk will always be there in regards to what could cause this individual to fall back and do that. Am I going to train this person and then they're not around? Because as we know, training is time and money. It can be well spent, but if you're going to train and then have to train another person within a month or so, then that's a loss for the company. So that would be the challenge for the individual. However, understand the work that we're putting in to the individual prior to us sending them out. And then while we're sending them out, we are still having case management with that individual. So the relationship that I have with employers is that if there is, as an employee, as one of mine, that is not meeting the expectations of the company, HR will talk to me about that as a part of their discipline action, I guess, if you will. So we can work on that here through counseling, me to work on that so that they will get that fixed. Because again, we're looking at an individual. I'm sorry.
So a challenge might be, like you're describing, the challenge is, well, what am I getting? They have a background, they have a history, but by hiring, when you bring them to me as a business owner, I'm getting the benefit of kind of a built-in mentor program, a mentoring aspect of it that's not a burden on me. So I still want to care about my employees, but it comes with additional help on my side of it, as it were.
That is correct. So when you're getting these individuals, you know that you're getting a full package. So by the time, even within a year of them leaving us and getting their own place, we're still moving them forward, but we're still in their life because we want them to be successful on that job. And that has happened on a couple of occasions where we had a business contact us and say, hey, listen, we're struggling with being tardy. So we worked on that again with that individual, and we created goals. Find out why are you not showing up on time, and we worked on that to eliminate that cause, and they've been successful ever since. So again, we have not had anyone terminated from employment because actually we haven't had anyone being terminated from employment right now. So.
That's awesome. That's a really great success story. And on top of all of this, we haven't talked about it in our podcast series yet. We haven't laid out the order of our podcast, but we are going to be talking about, if we haven't already, depending on what you've listened to, audience, and we're going to be talking about some other programs the state has to include the on-the-job training program. So if I were to come to you as an employer, I'd be getting an employee who has background of developed work ethic. You've worked with them on the skills necessary to be an effective employee, not necessarily the skills I need to run a forklift, but certainly the skills to be an effective employee anywhere. And then I can use that OJT money coming from the state of Pennsylvania, depending on the program, to help defray the expenses that you mentioned. Training is time and money. And I can get up to 50% of that back for 6 months. So it's nice to see how these programs can all work together when we think about it as a coordinated effort.
That is correct. And speaking of that, we do have a direct relationship with CareerLink as well in this whole operation. So they do come in and they will do trainings with the guys that are here while they're here as well. So we're trying to make it well-rounded. So when they leave here, they have not only the tools and the necessary items they need to be successful, they are living it. So it becomes a habit. That's why we started with outside referrals in the beginning, and they continue on with that. That's why we asked them to do a medical evaluation with a PCP, so that if there is something wrong, they can handle that while they're here in the first 90 days, surgery or whatever, so that by the time they're ready to work and they're in the workforce, that's not an issue an employee has to deal with. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm sure there's a lot of other things we can talk about, but I promised you this would be about 20 minutes. And hopefully, as we come across other topics, you'll be willing to come back and talk with us again. Thank you, Cleveland, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. Hopefully you found it informative, and please listen to the remaining parts of this multi-part series as we explore the way businesses can be successful, hiring and providing support for justice-involved individuals. We encourage you to check out the other resources the Covation Center has for small business owners. Visit our website at covationcenter.org and be sure to watch our video series on YouTube. Just search for Covation Center. We provide various videos designed to help you start and grow your small business. Until next time, have a great day.